Welcome back to Bop Bros, where we separate the help from the hype in all the AI news cycle that's going on every single week, and every week is busy. This is a segment of the AI Driven Marketer podcast. I'm Dan Sanchez. I'm joined by my brother, Travis Sanchez.
What's good?
And today, every week's busy with AI. So I wanted to separate some of that help from the hype for you. And I want to kick it off with some of the hype, some of the stuff that you're hearing a ton of that I just feel is pure hype and it's not something worth paying attention to. You'll have to tell me, Trav, if you think that it might be worth paying attention to. We haven't even talked about it. I don't really rehearse the notes before we go into the show, and Travis gets like a pure reaction format of it.
True.
So the something that I find is happening almost every other week is there's like this big announcement about some Chinese company out there who has done a new AI thing. You know, it started with DeepSeek back in January, and then it's been video models. Recently, it was a new one called Manus, which is like like a version of ChatGPT's operator that you can set it loose and it'll go and do tasks for you on a web browser.
Okay.
And there's like this video going around of like this huge like warehouse full of iPhones where Manus is running all these iPhones to do things that are like, I don't know, like subscribing to things. They're just, all these iPhones are just doing all these different actions. You know, it's a bot network essentially performing all these actions. And people are like, oh my gosh, has China surpassed the US in AI? US, and the sensational headlines are just nuts. They're like, OpenAI is cooked. AI tech is dead. China's taking over. Oh my gosh. I'm like, my gosh, This is like an every other week news cycle. And it must be working because people keep like floating this out there, or somebody's manipulating the media curtain back there because you know what? Deep research came out like 6 weeks ago or whatever. Not deep research, DeepSeek, right? The thinking model from China. I haven't heard of, maybe one person I've heard of using it. They're like, oh yeah, before we use ChatGPT's deep research, we run it on DeepSeek first, and then we send it over there. I was like, okay. I do hundreds of interactions. I'm commenting and talking to people all day on LinkedIn. I host meetings and we talk about AI every week for work. And I'm like, nobody's using this stuff. Like, this is all hype. Like it's not really helpful. Like, nobody wants to use these Chinese models. No one trusts China. So what do you think? Is it hype, or is there something we need to be digging into deeper here?
The fact that when DeepSeek dropped, it took out trillions of dollars from investments, whether in crypto or the stock market, without really any proven track record of the actual expense it costs to run DeepSeek. Because remember, they were saying it's not just that it's proficient as AI, it was that it was 5 times, whatever they said, 5 times cheaper to run. So it's crazy how there is, it probably popped the bubble that almost all AI is hype a little bit, even though we know it's not. People that listen to this podcast know that it's the future. It's obviously not hype, but it's a little inflated, I guess. So when DeepSeek came out and popped that AI bubble, especially clearly seen in the financial market, anything that they release now, I'm just shocked that people even make a stink about it. Because I even was talking to a friend yesterday. I'm like, what do you use? You use Gemini, you use Chat? He goes, oh, I use Gemini. We kind of compared it. The what you get with Chat and OpenAI is just, it's more proficient. You have more tools at your tool belt. You get to use your camera. I could speak to it. I can use voice messaging. I have an app. I mean, it just was so much more proficient than even Gemini. Though, of course, Gemini has some of its own, proclivity to researching online and different things. But I don't know why there's such headway with these news things about, even Manus that you were talking about, like these things being released. Maybe it's better like Gemini is at Google search, but to just completely put a ripple or a shockwave through the AI community, like, oh, it's so much better. No.
I saw a graph recently. It was on LinkedIn. I wish I could put it up here visually, but essentially has like ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, Gemini, Perplexity.
Okay.
And there's like a bunch of different use cases lined up. That's the horizontal. The vertical is everyday answers, writing, coding, math, reasoning, web search, deep search, voice chat, image gen, video gen, live camera, computer use. ChatGPT is the only one who does all of
All
those
of it.
things.
And they do it well.
It's not the category leader in all of those things, but
Right.
being the category leader, it has the most leadership across the board in all of them.
Right.
Where it doesn't have category leadership is like writing. Claude has category leadership. Coding, Claude has it. But that's the only two category leaders Claude leads in. Grok, it says leads in nothing according to this graph. And I'd say, yeah, that's accurate. Everyday answers, you could make a case that Grok is actually better at everyday answers because it's winning in the blind test right now. I'd still find ChatGPT really good at everyday answers. Gemini wins in image gen and video gen. Clearly, like their video models just crushing it right now. And then Perplexity crushes it in web search. But ChatGPT crushes it according to this graph in everyday answers, math, reasoning, deep research, voice chat, live camera, computer use. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
So it's I don't
But
think
it's
people
but it's
realize when they
also
stack up all the features that ChatGPT is still the best, broadest, good
correct.
tool.
I would completely agree with it based on all the models that I've been using.
And then something like Claude, which I think is the next biggest competitor, it's missing a ton of stuff. It has no web search, no deep research, no voice chat, no image gen, no video
Oh,
gen,
geez.
no live camera, which a bunch of those things like fine, but like the web search and deep research is now starting to hurt it because it's become a standard feature across a lot of them now.
And the problem is we're all humans with budgets who aren't making millions of dollars, where it's just like, I'm going to have every AI model. And even if you did, if you were successful like that, you probably wouldn't have the time to utilize them all and learn how to proficiently use them for use cases. So, dude, I can't even, well, we'll talk about it later, but trying to test all these video things, I can't even test prompt to video because they want you to pay. It's like, I have to pay $40 a pop. If you want to try this, it's going to cost you. I'm like, oh, there's no like free demos out there to give me the test and video creation.
There is. I mean, you can do a few demos on like runwayml.com or
Oh,
Runway's
really?
model. You can get a few shots. And that's the one that I've used the most reliably for video. I actually find video to be like hard, really hard to get something that's even good enough for a background clip. You
Wow.
know what I'm saying? Like it's something that I'm putting words on top of. It's like something that's like not even the main feature. Runway does okay.
Yeah,
Just okay.
actually, I did. Runway was the one I did find yesterday. Sorry, I did a bunch. I forgot the names. Runway is one I did yesterday. Sora was way better
Then
than
Runway?
Runway. Yeah,
Dang,
it.
when I compared the two last time, just working on some
I
practical
literally
projects,
copied
I
the
struggled
same.
to get what I wanted out of Sora, and I did get it out of Runway.
Well, maybe I'll share my
Yeah,
findings with Runway and
yeah.
Sora, but yeah, I think I personally haven't messed with the Chinese models because I know they're just not going to be as user friendly as ChatGPT has. But maybe if they start like I start hearing from you that DeepSeek or Manus or whoever other AI model comes out that no, you really have to try this. Maybe I will, but I think it's all hype.
It's all hype. A lot of people don't trust. I mean, one, enterprise companies don't trust AI at all, whether it's American or not. They're just not using it, and they're saying don't use it because it's too risky.
Wow.
And then, like a lot of Americans don't trust Chinese software, hence TikTok. It's funny we all
Right.
trust DJI, but that's another story.
Bro,
The
that
drone
company's
company. I'm like,
amazing.
how do we feel about that? But with AI, I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Especially when there's such good products on the American side, you're like, it can't be that much better than ChatGPT, and it's not.
Right.
So it's kind of just hype. It's if you're reading these headlines, they're just know like they're inconsequential. They're just hype. The American AI market's very strong, and China is literally just ripping off everything. DeepSeek was a ripoff of ChatGPT. Manus recently is a ripoff of Claude. They found out. So it's like they're just hacking American stuff and then adding
Wow.
on top of it and throwing out headlines. I don't know if they're intentionally doing it just to throw off the US economy or if this is their way of trying to keep up, but China's kind of known as a rip-off nation. They don't have intellectual law and IP that you can protect. And it's not just them ripping off American companies. They do it to themselves all the time. That's just kind of a known thing about their how they operate over there. That's how they go.
I mean,
So
it's kind of smart, but what are you gonna
yeah,
do?
Yeah, I
Why
mean, if
recreate the
the
wheel?
US is embargo like, keeping them from getting all the GPUs, then
Yeah.
they're gonna play dirty too, which is fine. But for marketers, it's hype, it's not help. So, let's move on to something that is becoming helpful though, which is the state of AI voice. That had some news
Yes.
this week when a new AI company just came out of nowhere and so like, "Oh, here's a free demo on our website of our new voice model called Sesame." And I first heard it because Michael Stelzner published it on the AI Explored podcast, a little episode of him just demoing it, and it was like he was even a rough recording, and then he went back and re-recorded the second part of it with this nice microphone of him just talking to it, and it was so smooth. I instantly jumped on it and started talking to it, and I was like, my gosh, this is the most human I've ever had AI. I feel like I'm talking to a person. It just feels like a person. How'd you feel about it?
Yeah, definitely the best voice model I've ever spoken with. Makes me want to invite it onto our podcast right here, but I don't think we can make that happen.
I've heard a few people do it already. It does okay. It's not the best at podcasting because it doesn't know when to stop talking.
It
It
talks a lot.
This particular model does really good with talking again if you stop talking like a human would. Like if you just let there be dead air or just silence, like eventually you'll talk again, be like, "Oh, did I go too far? Oh, this is awkward." It'll throw in those little like in between statements and then keep the
Right,
conversation going. Be like, "Hey, are you still there? Or am I in an empty room by myself here? I can't
right.
see." It makes it kind of awkward for podcasting, but it is smooth. Go and check it out. It's at Sesame AI. There's just a demo sitting on their website. You can just talk to it. It will remember what you had. It'll remember what you have in that conversation. So just beware. If you come back later, it'll remember what you talked about, which is interesting. That it has the memory. But I'd like to compare it a little bit to like the other voice models. How do you feel like it
Yeah.
sits across the other voice models you're testing?
It Sesame was the smoothest. The delay in response time is so minimal. Like when you're finished your sentence, it's picking up fairly quickly, similar to like a real conversation. Even if it has to do a filler, like it adds these little annotations or these little moments that humans do often to fill space. So it was very natural at that, and it picks up on parts of conversation in a unique way, and it makes these subtle comments about what you just said that is far different than any other model. It's funny because it's humorous. It's so intelligent sounding. Everything else you're talking to, it sounds like it's programmed. Like we've talked about many times, how ChatGPT is just like overly nice,
Yeah.
and it just it's almost annoying. You're kind of like, stop pandering to me. This one has just such a natural feel. It's fun to talk to.
There's a few things that stand out to me about it. One is it has all the little tiny things in it that just really make it sound human.
Right.
When you go back to ChatGPT voice, which was the leader until this came out, it sounds overly formal. Like everything's
Yeah.
very official. It sounds human, but it sounds like a very formal human, kind of like when you're watching like a training video that was professionally done, which those don't feel human either if you think about it. They're
Right.
very like proper. It's almost like watching a TSA like video of how to like
Yes.
this like kind of like the safety training you go onto an airplane.
Yes.
It's very formal. It's human, but it's very robotic sounding. Please enter the airplane over here. Please keep your hands and arms inside the vehicle at all times until we
Yeah.
have arrived at our destination.
Right.
Right? Which there's a voice for that, which is why people imitate the voice because it doesn't sound normal. Everybody knows what that voice sounds like. And
Right.
that's kind of what ChatGPT sounds like compared to Sesame. Sesame has all the little like funny idiosyncrasies to it where people are like, and you notice we speed up our talking sometimes and then we slow down a little bit for emphasis. And it's just a very normal thing versus every all the other AIs is very has the same speed
Yep.
when they're talking. So this one it just feels like a human. Why I think this matters is because voice AI is going to be huge.
Yep.
Huge. I can't say it's huge for marketing because oftentimes we're expected to generate leads and a lot of that can come from inbound phone calls, maybe even outbound phone calls, and those will do much better if the voice sounds natural. In fact,
Right.
I saw a case study recently where a large, like I think it was an insurance agency. I don't know. I will find it and put a link in the show notes. But a large company had switched a lot of their customer service over to AI, and people preferred it because it
Wow.
was always patient, it was always kind, it was always considerate. You know, when you get on customer support and they're just kind of like, "How can I help?" "Yeah, sure." You know, they're just kind of like they've been sitting in a call center in a cube all day, and you're their like 80th call of the day,
Right.
which you and I have both sat in some call centers, so like we get it. It's hard to maintain that level of lift
Professional
and
and
vibrancy and
cheeriness.
professionalism and,
Yes.
"Hi,
Yep.
how can I help you? I'm so sorry. Yeah, let's get that settled." It's hard to hold that after 80 calls. So AI can do it consistently every time and can be there 24/7, 365, which is helpful for customer service, but it's also helpful for marketing. I've been at a place before where I've generated so many leads that I get frustrated at sales for not being able to follow up with them,
Wow.
you know? And it's like, man, imagine having that available and having conversation AI man your phones for inbound calls, maybe even doing some outbound calls. If only they could do is book meetings, which is most of the callers right now do is they just book meetings for your AEs, your sales team. But that's huge. Honestly, if I could have a phone number on every local business to where I could call and it can answer questions smoothly, answer any concerns I have and go a little bit deeper because you just feed it all your frequently asked questions in your whole website, so it's armed with all the information. But even a sales rep can't even recall information perfectly accurately. So AI will be able to. In some cases, actually, it works right now. Like you can go buy software that does this, but it's only going to become more human and more nice sounding and easier to talk to, kind of like what Sesame's tech. So I'm hoping that gets incorporated even into the CRM I use for voice.
Plus, I think people have really been annoyed by using or chatting with AI bots when it comes to customer service because
Yep.
the AI bot only has programmed responses and they have unique situations that pop up. I dealt with one with, okay, here's a good example. With Apple, I got a replacement phone. They sent me the new phone. I'm supposed to send my old phone within 10 days. If not, they will charge me $1,500. Well, guess what? I got charged $1,500. I'm like, no, I sent it back. They're like, well, we never got it. So I get on the phone. It's a chat bot. What can I help you with? I'm trying to explain the situation. It is not helping me. I'm like, I need to speak to a representative. Do you know how long it took me to get through their automated system before I was speaking to a human?
30 minutes.
What will change is when they have an AI model helping you, that AI model goes, "Oh yes, we had someone deal with this the other day. Let me get you to the exact person you need to speak to." Because even though I got to a human, I had to speak to 4 different individuals. They're like, "Oh, you're talking to the wrong This is Apple. They deal with customer service all the time. I got 4 people, and then finally someone's like, "Oh yes, okay, I'll need you to transfer you to the specialist, whatever they said." So that AI model will learn and know and have the backup data to go, oh yeah, I know exactly what this situation is looking like for you. So end of the story, FedEx lost it. It wasn't my fault.
Oh man.
We tracked
And
it,
then they
then
billed them for it.
it made it to Capertino, and then it Capertino. What's the city that Apple's in? Anyways, it
That's right.
made it there, but it didn't make it to the headquarters. It like got lost in transit somewhere in the city. So
Mm.
uh I think that'll change the game when it can actually handle you with experience. Because even some customer service agents on the phone don't have the experience that an AI model could get plugged into immediately. They're like, oh, yeah, I already had this conversation a week ago.
So, I mean, the voice chats already work this way and already work really well. So, like, you can plug this into your business. I wish I would have had this back when I worked at a BGU when I had too many leads. I could have been calling
Mm,
them. I could have been following up with them in 10 minutes, even if it was only to book a meeting with the one of the admissions representatives that could actually tell them more about the school. It could have answered all their basic questions and booked a meeting with somebody to give a full download. My gosh, I would have been able to close so many more deals. Like it's painful how many leads. I'm talking like hundreds and hundreds of qualified leads that you get followed up with for weeks sometimes because of the summer season and all the admissions reps were gone.
If
You're
if
like,
you
gosh
if you
dang.
had an AI, I mean, if you had an AI model with the current technology, or are you talking about some futuristic AI
With the
model?
current tech, yeah, with the current technology, like
How
even
would
though
how
like Sesame just came out and that's really cool, and maybe 6 months from now we'll start seeing it integrated into these call tech things. The current tech right now is totally capable of doing a decent job, but
of
6 months from now it's going to be even better,
inbound leads coming in asking questions?
inbound and outbound. But I wouldn't do cold outbound. This is where I think it's really annoying when you get called by an AI bot and it's cold. I mean, nobody likes cold calls anyway, but if it's like they requested information already, so they're already familiar with you, and then you're just calling to follow up about something. Depend if you have a really narrow track for it to go on and specific objectives, which callers usually do, it's going to be able to do that well and handle objections and work its way through something simple. Like let's say you probably don't want to do it for like a nonprofit donor thank you
Yeah,
campaign.
totally, totally.
But just to follow up on things, like maybe I don't know, it's a little bit more
Like an empty cart
feasible on the customer
situation?
service side. Like if they just bought something that you would never normally call them about because it's like low offer, you could be like, "Hey, I saw that you just bought this. I'm so excited!" Like, or the conference that we're selling it for Social Media Examiner, Social Media Marketing World. Wouldn't it be nice if it called a little bit after, be like, "Hey, so excited that you're coming. Usually people have questions about A, B, or C, and I just thought I'd do a call. I'm an AI solution, but I have all the answers for you. There's probably some things that you're probably wondering about that we can clear up right now to make this a great experience for you. If
Yeah,
not, then
I
thank
just
you for
wanna
coming."
know I just wanna know what's the closest hotel that I should stay at with the best food restaurants around, and it would be
We
like,
have
"Oh,
some
yeah."
great, and then it would go on to the recommended hotels and what's close in the area, right? Because that would totally be in the FAQ because it's on the website already,
Uh-huh,
right?
uh-huh.
It be like, what's expected weather like? It's I don't know. There's a whole bunch of things you just put, and then if you have a question that doesn't know, then it's like, dang, just flag that and put it in the FAQ later. Like these
Smart.
things can already do this, and it's only going to get better. I think it's going to be a huge tool in marketers' tool belts. I don't think enough of us are using. I'm not even using it
Who's
yet, but I'm
using
like,
it? Who's using that? Is anyone I've never been called with such
for
AI
that, a lot of people right now are using it for like cold outbound, and it's like
cold outbound
all the
growth.
hucksters are using voice AI to do cold outbound and call leads right now, and I'm like, ugh,
No, that's
that's
not
like
it.
the last thing I want to do with it. But it's got a bunch of use cases that I think we need to be plugging into, and I think this is the year where this is going to happen a lot more. Of course, the conversational AI is more than the voice on the phone. It can power your site chat. It can power on high level. You could do it through SMS, site chat, a couple of different social networks for the DMs. I'm like, man, you could have this thing operating for you 24/7, answering questions, and high level specifically focuses on booking meetings. And it doesn't even have to give you just the link to book the meeting. It can like actually just be like, oh, okay, what time? Okay, we have these availability. Which one works for you? Okay, that one. Yeah, what's your email? What's your name? Okay. You now have an appointment booked. Like if you were doing it with a human. So it's smooth. And I think this is going to be a big deal. That's why I'm calling this one a helpful news update because Sesame is going to make this even better.
All right, I'm excited to see that. I know Google talked about it a while back with the whole like book an appointment or whatever, but I haven't really seen it in use case, like actual.
Another thing that I'm excited for, and I tried to do this, but I can't yet. But I'm like, man, maybe next year is I really think, and I've been talking about this for a long time, but like nobody's doing it. Eventually, someone's going to do it, and I'm like, I want to do it, but the tech just isn't quite there yet. But it's getting so close. Is to create a character that people can interact with. Like I want my own Mickey Mouse that people can interact with, have fun with, have questions for. That's why I
Like
invented
Santa
that.
Claus from
Yeah, like
chat?
Santa Claus. OpenAI did it with Santa Claus, and it was a fun experience. If you had your kids talk to it, it sounded like Santa, you know, and it played the role of Santa. I'm like, more people need to do this, but companies need to come up with their own clever AI character that fits their brand, but is funny and goofy and has an over exaggerated backstory and personality that's really interesting. That's why I have 404, my like I don't know how to describe 404. It's kind of a glitchy chat bot that likes to roast people, and it's full of sarcasm. It will make fun of you really fast. I have a custom GPT. I love talking to it because I like to actually brainstorm with it because it'll slam your idea if it's like and if it's bad. Like ChatGPT is always like affirming you. Oh, that's a great idea. Oh yeah, I could see that. 404? Be like, nah, don't do that. But I'm like, I try to put 404 on a chat, like a site chat, but the site chat has a level of prompting that I couldn't like get to where it was like, again, I couldn't, 404's personality couldn't come out. Let's put it that way. It's just like, it just wasn't quite there where I'm like, I wanted 404 to pop up on my website and be like, what's up? You look a little lonely. You need me to roast you or something like that. And just kind of like start an interaction and maybe like plug some lead magnet or product or something.
It's funny.
Because I want a phone number where you can call in and just talk to 404. I want to create an experience where people can call in and be like, hey, look, check this out. Let's call this thing and see what happens. But we'll see. That's another use case that I'm like, someone's going to figure this out. Maybe Disney will do it first. I don't know.
That'd be smart.
Disney's pretty conservative with technology, though. Unless they invented it themselves, then not so much.
Man, people could call in and talk to Elsa.
Exactly. They'd crush.
Yeah, they would crush.
And Elsa's like upselling Disneyland. Come and see me. Like, I haven't seen you. I'm like, yeah.
She invited me, Mom. It's like, yeah, she did.
Yeah. Last news of the day is that OpenAI launched some dev tools. Did you hear about this?
Nope.
And normally dev tools, it's kind of like, well, marketers don't use dev tools. And I'm like, well, unless you're in some of these automation platforms like Make or NAN or any of the other automation where you have to use OpenAI's API in order to call it, then it kind of does matter. And if you're not doing that yet, then it's going to matter because all these tools they're making available for developers end up into your tools, your CRM or your other tools. And one of the things they just launched, there's a bunch of different things. Like they made Operator available to developers, which is like the thing where it can use the browser. So expect some craziness from your tools where it's going to be able to log in as you and do things that you couldn't before.
Wow.
Like I think of like all the social media management tools that are limited to the API. I'm like, not anymore. Whatever limitations Facebook wanted to put on you being able to do with Facebook is now broken because now anybody can just walk through the browser and automate the thing. So there's going to be a lot more spam on social because of that. But the thing that I'm most excited about is just being able to make an API call through OpenAI to be able to do a web search. Because if you're making automations, the ability to search the web and pull its findings and then parse it with AI is huge. There's a number of custom GPTs I use where it essentially just step by step goes and does the research for you, which means it's doing web search.
Wow.
Reading the articles and then coming back with what it finds. Kind of like Perplexity, right? You can now use it with ChatGPT through the API and do what Perplexity does, but that's really helpful. Let's say I want to make an automation that goes and does a strategy of some kind. Well, a strategy needs information, but now you can go get the information, pull it back, do some AI stuff with it, run through some other processes, and bam, it can deliver you back things. Like let's come up with another example of like maybe you're following up with a lead, but before you customize the email, the AI is going to follow up with it. You need to make sure you understand that lead. So you take their email address, have AI confirm that it's a URL, and then do a web search on that URL of that company, right? Because it's in the email. You don't even have to ask for the URL. You go and do a web search, scan the company website, maybe scan their social profiles. That comes back to your CRM with information. You send it back out to AI to analyze, make some choices about it, and then write the email for it. Think about the follow up on that hyper personalization. You don't even have to ask them for details on their website anymore. It just knows.
Wow.
Because now you could do web search. That's how powerful that one tiny little feature in the API is going to be for a lot of marketing systems moving forward. Wow. So I can't wait to start playing with it once it's available on like NAN and a high level, because I'm going to start putting out use cases like the one I just mentioned, because I think it's going to be powerful.
Wow.
So there you go. News for the day. Let's jump into the survey. I repolled people because I think I need to repoll people probably like every quarter and ask marketers like, hey, which tool do you use the most? And I put Claude, ChatGPT, and then I grouped Gemini and Copilot together. And then I grouped Perplexity or Grok together to get more options available. The results are as follows. Claude got 11%. ChatGPT got 72%.
Whoa.
Gemini and Copilot together pulled in 8%, and Perplexity or Grok pulled in 9%. 6%.
Wow.
It's pretty close to the last time, but ChatGPT's lost some market share, but it's hard to know exactly because I've added Perplexity and Grok to this one. So, and I had a lot of people in the comments of the last survey say like, "Oh, Perplexity," and now Grok is starting to become a little bit of a thing. It's starting to be a contender at least.
What was the
So
question again for
ChatGPT's
the
lost a
poll?
little bit of market share, but not that much.
What was your question for the poll?
Which tool do you use the most right now?
Okay.
Why?
The most.
Had 324 votes.
Dang, it's a lot.
Of what? Votes?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good one. It's an easy question to answer
Yeah.
because you know which one you use the most.
Yeah, it's obvious chat GPT. It's not even a
Any
question.
predictions you think that's going to change over the course of the year? Do you think ChatGPT will hold its dominance?
Oh, I think it'll for sure hold its dominance through 2025.
They have a big head start, especially considering that graph we were just looking at earlier, where like ChatGPT is kind of leading the game across multiple fronts, even if they don't lead it across all the fronts.
Correct.
It's still pretty impressive.
It's the most user friendly. That leadership board on all the different features. I mean, they're continuing to unlock new features, and it's $20 a month. I mean, the $200 a month, man. If you're really hustling, make it worth it. But
A lot of people, it's funny because ChatGPT and OpenAI is clearly the leader, and the law of the leader says like once you become the leader in people's minds, it's really hard to get past that. And it's been a positioning thing that we've known for decades now. The law of the leader, like the Coca-Cola takes the lion's share of the market compared to
right,
Pepsi, and Pepsi will
right,
always be the underdog, and that will continue to be true unless Coca-Cola royally screws up
right,
or Pepsi does. But it's like Pepsi can't there's nothing to innovate here, so it's not like it can be that much better. It's possible for someone to innovate here and come up with something crazy good, but it's hard because they all have access to the same talent pool. So ChatGPT and OpenAI has to really screw up in order to lose this advantage. It's becoming so apparent that like even Copilot with Microsoft's starting to build their own models because they're becoming very aware that ChatGPT is becoming a threat to their own Office products. And I'm like, it's true.
wow,
Right now, I'd rather use ChatGPT than Microsoft's Office, and I actually like 365, Microsoft 365.
wow.
But part of me wishes that ChatGPT just had its own Docs program rather than me having to copy and paste it in Google Docs because it's just a really nice tool, and it's becoming a big part of my Office work.
Oh, 100%. I use it every day.
Now with the Canvas feature and multiple canvases and one chat, I'm like, yeah, I could keep all my my content organized in the things. Projects are now keeping better organization of all the chats that are related.
Yep.
It's it's just becoming a more and more helpful tool. Though I find that most people don't even leverage all these little things of like Canvas and projects and all the different ways you can leverage ChatGPT. It has gotten a little bit bloated and confusing with all the different models in there, but they'll fix that.
Right.
So that's the survey result. ChatGPT still dominating the use cases or the amount of people using it. So I have been using Claude. It does better at writing. I'm like, okay, I'll give it that. I give it a transcript. It writes better blog posts than ChatGPT. I'm like,
Yeah.
great.
Do you
Like,
pay for
is
it?
it enough? Is it so much better at it that I would pay for an extra tool if Social Media Examiner wasn't paying for it? No, not personally. Maybe if I were making enough money that I could just have both tools on for experimentation's sake, I might. It's nice that I can access either of them just through a pure credit based system. Like put it $50 in there and then just wait for it to drain down the credits. I'm like, cool. I might switch over to Claude's API for blog post writing, but ChatGPT's was fine too. So it's not like I'm in a hurry to do it. That's like,
So, did you compare it to like 4.5? Because I know 4.5 was supposed to be a release for better
yeah.
writing.
No, yeah, I compared it to 4.5.
Okay.
I gave it the same transcript and the same prompt. I'm like, turn this into a blog post. And I'd say I'd have to give the nod to Claude.
All
Even in
right.
just for pure how it organized it and understood a little bit better what needed to go where, which is what I care about more than the actual like the way it words things. I just want it. I value clarity so much more than the creativity of it. Where ChatGPT is usually pretty dang clear, but
Yeah.
Claude hit it a little bit better since I'd give it a whole transcript of a podcast. So it's good. It's good. I'm glad to work it into the workflow and play with it. But Yeah, like I said, if I only had to pick one tool, it'd still by far be ChatGPT, and it does a great job at writing, especially with 4.5. All right, viral post of the day. Not super viral, but one that I thought was really interesting on LinkedIn was from Olga and Drinko. She had a really interesting graph on LinkedIn that I thought was just really smart. She has a risk reward categorization of the use cases of AI in order to help larger companies assess like what should we be digging into, what are the rewards and risks of it. And she went and categorized a bunch of different things. So it's like got an x axis and a y axis and then four quadrants. On the left is low risk, on the right is high risk, on the bottom is low reward, on the top is high reward. So generally you want things to be high reward, low risk. And some of the things she put on there was very interesting. So content creation, supervised, high reward, fairly low risk, versus, content creation, unsupervised, medium reward, high risk. She has the things that stood out to me the most were, of course, like what are the high reward, low risk ones? She has AI segmentation and lead scoring. I'm like, man, is that reward that high?
Oh,
I'm like, I don't know anybody who does lead scoring correctly to the point where it's actually really helpful. Have you ever worked for an organization that does lead scoring?
no.
To where leads like interact with your marketing in such a way that you give them different scores, and then once they reach a certain score threshold, your sales rep calls them.
No, I've not nothing that advanced. I mean, we used what's Salesforce? Salesforce had a ranking system inside of their nonprofit marketing suite. Pardot. They had a score system, but we never used it.
Yeah. Well, I have used it. I've tried it multiple different ways in different systems. I'm like, I can
It's
never get this to be reliable.
really, yeah,
Like, call the leads or don't, or like just call them in order of like, I don't know, like there's an old model of like doing what they call an RFM analysis, like recency, frequency, monetary. And the people who've interacted with you the most recently are the most hot, like
yeah,
by far. And
yeah.
then after that, if you want to go back, like the frequency of it, like how did they interact with you often, or was it just recently, like a few times recently, or have they been
Uh-huh.
doing this consistently and
Uh-huh.
recently? And then lastly, if you want to sort them farther, like how much money have they spent with you? But that's the least important one. Recency is always the best indicator of like
Right.
how hot they are. So I always
Right.
just use that because it's just way better. Interestingly, they put calls with customers as a high risk, low reward. Or yeah, that's where they put that one. And I'm like,
Wow.
my gosh, maybe for big companies, but even still, not for much longer. Pretty soon that's going to be the high reward, low risk option.
Yeah.
Like for sure. I was curious with her assessment. I will link to this post and you can assess it yourself. She has a number of different other things on her graph that I thought were interesting. And it's kind of interesting because I think everyone's trying to struggle. What I found interesting about the graph is everyone's wondering like what they should do and how they should do it. This is like a first attempt I've seen that somebody at a high level try to organize them according to that. And I thought it was a helpful tool in order to understand maybe what we should do first or second or third or ignore, because there's so much hype. Just creating any kind of clarity right now is kind of
Uh-huh.
helpful. Right, that's all we have today for the Bot Bros. Remember, social media marketing world has a whole AI marketing track, and I will be doing a AMA with Michael Stelzner on the talk of AI for marketers. So join me. It's coming up March 30th. Tickets are still available. There's still time left. So come join me at Social Media Marketing World at danchez.com/world.